He was a good kid. There's nothing that would have predicted any of this could have ever happened.
So tell me about, kind of give me a synopsis of your childhood.
I was a quiet kid.
I know I only have a year left to appeal. I just want to get out of here.
This video exposes Chris's chameleon-like personality, how he goes from sounding reserved and humble to being talkative and willful. The subject of this video is the Chris Watts case, but this video doesn't just apply to that case. If you watch the video all the way through, I think you'll find the information very useful in the conversations you have. If you like the video, press the like button, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing results in more videos. You can also support on Patreon. Let's get the video started. First off, we notice that Chris is able to engage in a normal conversation with his sister, Jamie. In the beginning, he's responding and asking the way we would expect from a reserved person.
Hey.
Hey.
You look good.
You look good too.
I like your hair.
Oh, thanks.
Let me see all the gray.
It's still there.
Oh, we missed you.
How was the birthday?
It was really good. I got my face smashed in some cake.
Oh, that's good.
When Jamie continues to talk about her birthday, we hear mirroring in form of lexical reuse, which means using a word that the other speakers introduced.
Yeah, Erin got me from behind and pushed my face into the cake, and then took a big wad of cake in her hand and smashed it in my face.
Nice.
So I had cake in my hair, in my face, everywhere.
Well, I was getting ready to ask you to get it in your hair. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of horrible to try to get that out.
We did. It was, and then I think she got Mom too.
Well, that's
just being
good.
funny. Yeah, she got Mom too. So
well, that's good.
There was cake all over my kitchen floor. I had so much to clean up. It was a mess. But
it's part of it. It's part of it. That's good.
Yeah.
When Jamie mentions her hair, Chris uses this noun as the focus in his upcoming sentence.
Well,
so I had cake in my hair.
Well, I was getting ready to ask you to get it in your hair. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of horrible to try to get that out.
Lexical reuse is normal in conversations. It's a token of politeness, acknowledging the other speaker's words. Chris uses lexical reuse to agree with Jamie. He's also good at anticipating her reactions and conclusions, as we observe here.
It's part of it. It's part of it. That's good.
This is a pattern.
You
Can't
got your
believe
Jeep.
it. I got my Jeep. I'm
Yeah.
no longer the soccer mom.
That's a cool Jeep, though. That's a cool
Yes,
Jeep.
I love it. I can park it.
I know. It's just like it. Even when it snows, you'll be good.
Mhm. You know me. I've already
Yeah.
told Mom what I got her for Christmas. I can't keep nothing.
I know, right? Like,
Chris is very attentive, and he's a good listener. These skills have served him well. It's easy to see why many people thought of him as a nice guy. This impression is reinforced by his mother.
And he was a good kid. Had two best friends, and that's who he grew up with, and still are friends with them today. There's nothing that would have predicted any of this could have ever happened. I would have never in a million years thought something like this could happen to him. He was quiet, and he got along with people. He was a perfect teenager, tell you the truth. He did not even rebel.
It's very likely that Chris has been assigned this role early on and regurgitates it now as an adult, because in his interview with CBI agent Tammy Lee, he seems very aware of this role.
So tell me about, kind of give me a synopsis of your childhood.
I was the quiet kid. I was I just kind of followed it. I mean, my sister was the rebellious one that always,
You're like, I'm a good one.
It's like I never, and my sister was the one that got the most of she was the one that showed me, like, that's what I don't want to do.
Right.
I would wake up to my mom and my sister pretty much arguing every morning. That's all I went, okay. They're like, I don't want to wear this, I don't want to wear that. I'm like, okay.
You're like, Mom, what do you want me to wear? I'll wear whatever you want.
I'll just go, if I didn't do it, don't wear it today.
Right.
The role of the quiet and shy guy puts Chris in a passive position, that things in life happen to him, that he's reacting rather than acting. In the prison interview, he also admits to wanting to sit in the back row.
My whole life, I just kind of went with the flow. Like I never like put myself in the center of attention. I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be in the back row.
This passivity and ability to mirror other people's emotional states were also evident in the videos that his wife Shanann recorded. Chris was waiting to be told what to do, waiting for cues on how to react. His verbal behavior in the police interviews was no different. First of all, he displayed unreliable politeness several times.
I'm sure that you are feeling some of the pressure from me. Okay?
You're doing your job.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't grill you a little bit, right? Okay.
I've seen you tell two different guys. Like, honestly, like I've seen like where you're smiling, and I've seen where it's different.
Yeah.
I can, yeah.
Okay.
You're doing your job though. Like I can't fault you for anything you've asked.
I think you knew what was wrong.
I did not know what was wrong, sir. I promise you that.
Where were they going to go?
They went to Shanann took them to a friend's house.
Why wasn't they go to daycare?
I am not sure. Honestly, sir, I am not sure.
Polite behavior contradicts the emotions that the subjects are expected to have in these situations, hence the word unreliable. Secondly, he imitated emotions.
I didn't do anything like that. They were still in the house.
Where are they? Where did they go?
I don't know, sir. I really don't know.
I just find it hard to hear you talk about just having this emotional, conversation with Shanann, and you're bawling and crying together, and you have not shed one tear in 2 days that you've been here. Not one. And help me understand that, because I don't get it. These are your baby girls, and you have not shed one tear over them not being around. Chris, I lose my 4-year-old in the store for 10 seconds and I start to go panic. I have not seen any of that from you at all. Help me understand that.
I love those girls. I would never do anything just because I haven't shed a tear. You get
no, that's weird. Is that weird?
Don't look into that like I don't love my kids.
Well, tell me, explain to me. You're crying with your wife that you're leaving her.
As we see, when the agents bring up a particular action that he hasn't shown them yet, he immediately tries to imitate said action, as he does here by sounding sad, and then lexical reuse.
So that should cause you pain.
It does cause me pain.
Show us this Chris, not this Chris.
I'm not showing you that Chris. I'm showing you the Chris that cares about his girls and his wife.
In a previous interview, the agent, DeCoder, brought up the idea of two Chris's, a good side and a bad side. The fact that a subject's willing to accept this dual personality is a major sign of guilty knowledge. Innocent people are expected to strongly reject such an idea. 2 times Chris reuses Tammy's verb show. Paradoxically, it's this reuse that makes Chris's statement sound like an act. It suggests highly deliberate behavior on his part. In a larger perspective though, Chris's statements and behavior don't just indicate that he's being strategic and that he's guilty. His statements and behavior also indicate a lack of self-awareness, how he really comes across to people. In previous videos, I've shown how Chris gives himself away by being flattered by Tammy's attention. Tammy's skilled at acting impressed with Chris and giggling. What's more noteworthy though is that Chris actually falls for this, as if he were on a date and not speaking to law enforcement. He's unaware of the fact that the more he talks about himself and laughs, the more suspicious he looks. His family was still just missing at this point in time.
Do you like it there? Oh yeah. I worked for Covenant Testing Technologies before that.
What is that?
That's a contract company for oil and gas.
Oh, okay.
Before that, I worked for Ford for 11 years as a technician.
Oh my goodness. So does that translate into
No, well, it's mechanical. I mean, like, I like to fix things. There's a lot of mechanical things you do in oil and gas, but it was it's not as repetitive as the car industry is.
You go to work pretty early.
Yeah, we start pretty like 6:30, somewhere around there. So.
Super early.
Oh yeah, you have to get there early. You just never know what could happen. So.
That's true. That is true. Do you go to any do the Nuggets play in North Carolina?
Oh no, North Carolina that's the college.
Oh, college. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any other nicknames or anything that people call you?
It's Chris.
Just Chris.
And some just random ones at work. Just it doesn't make any sense. So.
Like what?
Some call me Rain Man because when I go to a site or something, if I do it once, I'll remember it, and this is one of those things.
Tammy makes herself seem lesser than Chris, which by definition makes Chris the special one. And oddly enough, Chris happily accepts this role.
So are you a pretty techie guy?
No, I don't say techie, but I understand numbers and math a lot. That's with working on these wells. There's a lot of programming, a lot of setting up these wells to make them run, and using the numbers, the pressures to optimize the wells is something.
You already lost me. I do
that
that job.
job.
No, I did not do that job. My husband is a techie guy in our family, so he sets up all our routers. When I get a new phone, he sets up my phone for me just because he has that brain that I don't have as far as being a techie person.
Tammy indicates that husbands know about technical stuff, inviting Chris to feel superior to her in this regard. And she succeeds at turning this pre-polygraph interview into a casual conversation. What we're able to conclude so far is that Chris is passive and hesitant by default, but when he's asked to talk about himself, he can be very talkative, and he's very bad at considering the context he's in. This stems from his ignorance of how he comes across to people, his lack of self-awareness. Many people are both reserved and talkative depending on the context. What's so dangerous about Chris is that he's able to talk about himself and his family as if nothing has happened. This shows a severe lack of not only guilt, but also feelings. As he admits in the prison interview, he even had to be told to show more emotions. Emotions didn't come naturally to him.
There's no other way people are going to opinionate themselves about me just by what they see right there.
Right.
They're going to say, okay, they look at the guy that did the interviews on the 14th, and they see, okay, that guy should be on his hands and knees, crying his eyes out, and what's he doing? He's just he's just talking.
Right. Yeah. You did show some emotion during that hearing.
I know, even my attorneys told me, you need to show a little more emotion, because I guess first time I went to the courtroom, I didn't know what to expect. I was still new to everything, just in shock about what was going on, and they said I was just a cold person, just looking at me.
Additionally, he talks like this, thinking he can get away with it, that he can outsmart investigators, journalists, and the world. This shows a sense of superiority. So already we observe underlying negative personality traits. In Danish, we have the expression, det stille vand har den dybe grund. The expression's used to describe people that don't attract much attention, but still have a lot of hidden talents. The expression is often used in a positive sense, but in Chris's case, I understand it in a negative sense. Because I think the negative sense of this expression fits Chris's behavior perfectly. Shy and quiet on the surface.
I think, when you say more a shy guy,
but self-centered and cunning underneath. In the prison interview, Chris tells a story about tricking a teacher.
I've always had a really crazy imagination. So when I was a kid, I even convinced my teacher I went to Japan over the summer, or to China or something. But she said, you should write down, your story, how you cope with this.
Why did you convince your teacher you had gone to another country?
It was just what you did over the summer, and I was like, I went to China. I just started writing. And she actually believed it. I was really convincing.
So you're a smart dude.
Yeah. It was, and they, parent-teacher conference said, so how was China? What? Nope.
Obviously, Chris had other talents than simply being quiet and shy. Let's return to Chris's phone call with Jamie. Chris talks about the Bible.
And Dad got baptized. you can believe that. I mean,
know I didn't expect it to happen that fast, and I was like, wow, he's getting baptized already.
when you write me, you can explain some of the Bible to me, because when I read it, like, I don't understand it. So
a lot of it I read a few times over before I turned the pages, so I could kind of absorb what it said, because there's a lot of things like there's like a whole paragraph in the Bible is a sentence almost, because there's so many semicolons and commas. I'm just like, wait a minute, was that a whole sentence?
do you understand it?
Yeah, like I understand.
Like, I have a hard time.
Yeah, like, because once I read it, like, I've gone back and read a few of the books again, just to like kind of absorb some of the favorite books. There's some of the sections that are insanely long.
When you write me, you explain some of this to me, because I have a hard time. You can help me with that.
Okay, I'll do that for sure.
Chris sounds more passionate about the Bible in his phone call to his private investigator, looking for opportunities to appeal. I've analyzed this phone call in full in a previous video. For the purposes of this video, I'll play a few excerpts that I think reveal a lot about Chris.
Winging it in the law as I am. And, God directed me through little things like, through the poisonous tree, the Brady law, and different cases that, just it popped out of nowhere, but I know what God put in front of me. And I see all these things that relate to my case. I just don't know, like, how to frame this, where, like when I do this 35C, like, I've had this paperwork with me for probably a couple months, and I know I only have like a year left to appeal.
Chris seems very sure that it's God who's put the other cases in front of him, that it's God directing him. This is pious language, but his attempt to sound like a changed man is negated when he reveals the simple truth that he just wants to get out of prison.
I just want to get out of here. I want to get, I know that God has a plan for me, and it's to be in prison right now, but not stay here. Because he brought me here for a reason. But he also wants me to do something on the outside. I know I just can't sit here and just wait.
Notice the assertive language again. Chris knows that God has a plan for him, a different plan than the old one, allegedly. But the only reason he's able to know is because it's his own thought, his own plan. Because linguistically, Chris's personal pronoun, I, and God are one and the same. They happen to believe the same, and they appear in the same syntactic context. These aren't separate entities, as Chris will have the investigator believe. It's just Chris, singular. This isn't the first time that Chris has put blame on another entity for what he did. Before I play the last excerpt from this phone call, let's listen to a few excerpts from his prison interview, where he's asked to detail his crime. Notice how he removes agency from himself by making it sound like he was forced to do what he did.
Every time I think about it, I'm just like, did I know I was going to do that? I don't know.
Really? That's an interesting thought, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if you knew.
There was already something in my mind that I was implanted that I was going to do it, and then I woke up that morning and it was going to happen, and I had no control of it. Like, why couldn't I just let go? I didn't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, I just let
Was
go.
it feeling like it was in motion and you just couldn't stop it?
Yeah, it was just like, I don't even want to know what she saw when she looked back at me, honestly.
Next, Chris compares himself to a biblical protagonist as he gives a somewhat questionable summary of the book of Esther. The fact that he compares himself to a protagonist is our first clue that he doesn't consider himself a bad guy. This is in line with his lack of guilt.
Just like in my devotional today, it was mentioned Esther. It was a door Pope, and the Lord was speaking to Esther, and she was saying to the Lord, I've led you to the wilderness, but I will plant in that wilderness vineyards. If you go through the valley of Kor, which is the valley of trouble, I will put a door of hope. But even though you're in a wilderness, you're going to plant vineyards in that wilderness. Though you're in the valley of trouble, there's going to be a door of hope in that trouble.
Chris says he's going to put vineyards in that wilderness, once again assigning agency to God. Chris implies that God has put him in trouble and will get him out of trouble. He doesn't point to his own actions, his own accountability. This way, his alleged newfound relationship with God doesn't seem to run deep at all, and his assertive language, equating his knowledge to God's knowledge, suggests that he's far from being humble. This impression of Chris as shallow and lacking real humility is further evidenced by his later statements and letters, and we hear Chris answer self-righteously.
Why do you think she wasn't fighting?
I read the Bible. It said, where the scripture says, don't forgive these people, for they do not know what they do. Maybe she was saying that. I don't know what she was saying in her head, but she...
Obviously, the Bible contains many other scriptures that Chris could have used instead, and as he reliably says, I don't know what she was saying in her head. This should make us ask, why did he choose this exact scripture? Because he can twist it and apply it to his own situation. Chris suggests that Shanann forgave him because he actually didn't know what he was doing. This wishful thinking redeems Chris. He pretends to know Shanann's thoughts in an attempt to point to his own ignorance at the time, and it's implied that he's no longer that person. The notion of forgiveness is also prominent in one of his letters to his mother. Chris writes that he's still a dad, still a son, no matter what, and that he can now add servant of God to that mix, that God has allegedly shown him peace, love, and forgiveness. Firstly, writing that he's still a dad and a son indicates that he still has a strong sense of self-worth despite his horrific decisions. Secondly, he again mentions forgiveness, because that's what he hopes to achieve. Invoking God's name and using generic words like peace and love seem to be Chris's sympathy strategy. He doesn't assign real meaning to these words. He seems to use them because they sound good, and hence make him look good. When Chris was moved to a federal prison, he told investigators that he'd been to only one church service, but that this service had left him with an important lesson. The pastor said that you're not defined by one moment in your life. Chris then goes on to say that he thinks people are defining him by one moment in his life. This is extreme downplaying of his decisions and what his victims had to endure. And implicitly, he even judges other people for defining him by one moment, as he calls it. By inference, Chris actually says that it's people who need to learn this quote-unquote important lesson. He goes on to say that he only cares about God's opinion, not anybody else's. All this sounds like Chris using his version of God as a shield against accountability, against facing what he's done. As I've tried to prove in this video, Chris's prideful and remorseless language reveals his true nature. He wasn't like two persons at the time of the crime, and there isn't a good Chris and a bad Chris. All this time there was and is only one Chris. The two sides of his personality are inextricably linked to each other, and he constantly contradicts his own attempts to appear humble and changed. Don't forget to write what you think about all this. Thanks for your time.
People are defining me by one moment in my life. They don't know what happened before or what can happen later. Hopefully one day people can stop judging everybody.